Well, hello again, YouTube. It's PD back. Should I apologize that I'm constantly holding up my little pedal boards that I make in these things? Well, last time I checked in with you guys talking about my setup, I had built what's called a full tone fat boost version 2. Um, that circuit, like the full tone fat boost, originally is a really simple circuit. It's got just two JFETs in it, which is the transistor, the part that has three connectors, three legs. It's a transistor, you know. The Fat Boost version 2 has four. There's four knobs. It's volume, gain, treble, and bass. And the thing is my first pedal in the chain is a treble booster. I have a Germanium Rangemaster that like I've been through quite a few pedals, quite a few in this quest to get the sound. Um, and what I noticed was the Germanium Rangemaster is a little bit harsh. It's a little bit much compared to the Naga Viper, which is silicon, which gives me everything that I can get from the Germanium Rangemaster that has the expanded capacitor on the input, which just means an unmodified, a stock Rangemaster has a real small capacitor that just shelves all of your low end into your mids. Where this one has a knob, and I had that knob on my Germanium Rangemaster too. This is a little bit smoother of a control. You get a little more bass out of it. It's not a germanium. A germanium means you have to have an inverted power supply. So you either have to build something which is called a charge pump, which can create noise in certain circumstances, or you can run an internal battery. And then when you read stuff like the LED you choose can consume more power than the circuit. I had a real bright, like a hot pink 5 millimeter LED. It was a black powder coated enclosure. It was a cool looking pedal, but I ran it for 3 months and the battery was dead. And if you know anything about these types of circuits, the battery should last a really long time unless you put an LED in it. So I've kind of compromised over to the silicon version of this circuit, the modernized version that I kept reading about the Naga Viper over the years and I resisted building it. I had known about the Rangemaster cult and that whole thing for so long, and finally when I built it I was like, oh my god, this is the pedal. Like this, it just really sounds fantastic when you turn it on as opposed to when it's off. The guitar is just clearer, it's more articulate. It's not a big muff, you know, it's clean. Now, mind you, you can get dirty with it. You can. If you've got it set up with a like a cranked Marshall and you click this, it's gonna get more gain, more dirt, you know. The problem is now at this point, like we solved the problem of the not having enough bass. We solved the battery problem, and I didn't really trade any ear candy because what it did at times when we played, like the drums and my wife's bass sounded like they were in one realm, and my guitar was on top of that, like lined in, like it was a little bit too bright, a little bit harsh, high end. So it's not a compromise at all using the Naga Viper. It's awesome. You can get everything that the Germanium capacitor modified Rangemaster offers and more. And it sounds a little better. But not on the making it more bright side, I'm reining it in a little bit, if that makes sense. So perhaps one of the takeaways from this video is if you're like a Digitech or a Boss pedal guy, or you buy Chinese clones, that's fine. That's I'm not gonna rip on anybody for their choices in pedals. The Rangemaster is one of the pedals that you're not really going to be able to come across a Rangemaster unless you make an investment. So the best way to get into that is this Naga Viper. Build your own. You can build them on Vero, you can build them on strip, or you can get a PCB. Now, the second pedal, these are designed to be run as a pair. They're buddies. I don't know if you heard that. It's a different sound. This stomp switch in here is a low impact, lesser velocity. It's something I was unaware that they made. It's a little bit cheaper and it's a little bit less clicky, and I really like that. I'm from here out, like if I was King Fat Daddy-O, I would call my slaves and say, or call up Tata, get 100 pack of those low velocity switches and put them in all of my pedals. Pairing the Naga Viper up with this EP boost. This is a volume booster pedal that brings back the low end and the mids. So while this might be a little much, you pair it with this and it's like, oh man, your guitar just sounds phenomenal. And I found that running these two actual, and I hate to use this word, but analog pedals in the send and return loop of my amp simulator, cab simulator, multi-effect unit, which is a new XMG30, running these things in the loop and then setting that loop at the beginning of the signal chain. So virtually my guitar is plugged into this first. These two come first. Virtually. I tried it the other way of putting it like realistically in front of the MG30, and it sounds better with these in the effects loop, which I know you would think is crazy. It's crazy, but this is the way I'm doing it. And I've been searching for something to go in the second spot that isn't just a little bit better than this EP boost, and I don't know if I'll find it. What I may end up with is a triple board having another stage, another boost. And like I have a few of these boards. There's 4 of them. So putting a distortion box at the end like a Rev G3, I've got a Clark Gainster, I've got a Klon, I've got a Silver Fox, which I gotta tell you, that Silver Fox it's different than the Klon. It's different. I don't know how to describe what it's doing differently, but I really like it. It's like a $20 pedal, and it had a heterodyne oscillation, so I had to cut the charge pump IC chip out and put the chip in it that runs at the higher frequency, and then that solved that issue. So I've been messing around. Well, I saw a video with Eddie Van Halen. He's like, I've been chasing tone my whole life, and like I was watching YouTube with my daughter, and we both looked at each other and just like so embarrassed that we play guitar after we heard him saying that. Chasing tone. But that's kind of what's been going on, and I've tried all kinds of different pedals. I've bypassed the traditionals. Like there's the LPB1, there's the MXR microamp. Because I'm looking for something with some tone shaping. I want a bass control so I can really fine tune what's going on, the relationship between these two. I want a treble control too. So ideally, I need a clean boost that has treble and bass control. So if you look on Alibaba Express, China sells a bunch of mini pedals that have the same layout. Meaning, I'm guessing that the circuitry is identical in these pedals, and they put a different sticker on the front, and they're like $17 or $18 for those pedals. Sometimes they'll charge 21, sometimes they'll charge 16. So I got a $16 version of that, and what I found was it lacked any personality, and then on top of it there was a weird distortion. There was a really unpleasant distortion that was happening in the new XMG30 when I used this boost pedal. So that ended the thought that this is going to be an easy proposition finding, or cheap. So I went looking and I found the full tone fat boost and ordered that. They had a sale at the PCB place, so I got the Naga Viper PCB and I got this fat boost. And we ordered the parts from Teda, which is where they sell the resistors and the transistors and the chassis. You can get everything there just about. They have really expensive shipping now. The shipping's like $17. So it was not cheap. It was like 56 or $60 from Teda, and like 25 from the PCB company, pedal PCB. But I'm thinking like this is going to be it. I'll build these two pedals, and this will be the end of my tone chasing. Well, real quickly I learned that I really didn't like the fat boost, that it was goofy. The bass knob was not very responsive, didn't do much in this configuration. It had a real lot of power. Like it really got loud and it got really gainy, and it was another source of distortion. It like wasn't so much a clean boost, which really being like the secondary pedal. Like I really didn't. I had the tones cranked, but then like the volume and the gain were so far ridiculously down, and it was so loud. So when I had built that, I had used some goofy wire, and it started causing problems right away. So I went back in and I resoldered the connections, and it basically ended up as a catastrophic failure of that board, which has happened to me before. I've bought PCBs and had problems before. I didn't use, there's these SIP header pins, I think they're called. So it's like a plastic block, and there'll be like 4 of these little pins, and you can drop it in where the holes are to solder, and then tack the wires onto the little brass pins that stick up, and then roll shrink boot over them and compress that shrink boot, and it's a really nice way to do it. Well, I did that on one side of it, but on the other side there really wasn't a lot of room. It's like the power jack is there, the LED is there, the PCB is touching the LED, and then the input and the output jacks are there, and right in that area he has a header where all this stuff connects. You have both of the grounds from the input jack, you have the 9-volt and the ground for the power supply, the power jack input, and then the anode and cathode connections for the LED. And I'm going like a wire for the LED coming around rather than just putting the LED and soldering itself in at a little bit of an angle and having it fit into the hole. And Bob's your uncle. So the pedal would be fine, and then all of a sudden it would start splittering and spluttering, making noise. And the LED, then I got the pedal to be stable, but then the LED was blinking crazy. And this was happening during our rehearsals, because when I built it, like, it was fine. And then we went to do a rehearsal. We're playing 15 minutes in, it starts making a racket. I had tried these knobs from Tata. These are the knobs that I had. So I had 4 of these knobs on here. They do have little set screws in them. And I over tightened 2 of the knobs. I was pissed off because we were in the middle of getting going and playing, and I had to tear this pedal apart, bring a soldering iron in, set a table up, rip all the hardware off of it, completely move the entire thing out of the chassis, and then flip it over, clean the board with alcohol, reheat all the solder connections, clean up the header wiring, put it all back together. When I put it back together, a wire wrapped around one of the pots, the ground for the LED. So that caused one of the wires to lay across the others on the header. It was bad. And I over tightened 2 of the set screws, the 2 outside ones. And when I went to try to loosen them, I realized real quickly they had cracked off. They were half moon. So I went in, rather than drill it out, because that's so dangerous. I mean, like, if I had a shop with a big vise, I could wrap the thing in a piece of leather, stick it in the vise, and then get in there with a drill and some goggles and gloves. But this is like, we're supposed to be playing, and I thought maybe I could rip them off with a pair of channel locks. Well, I did rip the pots off, but the shafts came with it. So I had 2 potentiometers that you could just look through. And I cleaned this thing up, and I thought maybe I could, hammer the shafts back in, and it would work. And it ended up, I got everything, once I was able to move that wire that was pulling across at an angle, once I got that out of there and made it all nice, I used a fresh hobby knife to cut away where all of the insulation had bowed out from getting too hot, from being resoldered. I cut all that stuff away, and I was able to pull those through and cut them off and make it nice in there. And then it was blowing LEDs. And then it started with the magic smoke. So I just cut it out, and I went back to square one. Mind you, I was able to salvage the stomp switch with the wiring, which is that's a kind of a big job, is wiring a stomp switch. And like all of the rest of the hardware I can use, so it was a pretty light order. And what I ordered, I went back and I got a PCB and I got parts from Tata. So what we're going to be doing is this is like such a mouthful. Okay. There was a 7 transistor octave fuzz called the Univox Super Fuzz. This is also called the Leeds Fuzz, because The Who did a live album recorded at Leeds, and Pete Townshend used this. So people know about this sound. It's a real splatty, weird fuzz sound. And it's been replicated, and there's bands that use this sound, and that's their thing. There's like acid rock, like Satanic band. I forget what they were called. I think the band Monster Magnet, that guy uses or was it Fu Manchu? I think the Fu Manchu guy uses it. So Boss Corporation put their second fuzz on the market. They had the FZ1 and the FZ2. The FZ2 was a clone of that Super Fuzz, except it didn't use transistors. It used op amps, and they sound identical. You can like, I went and got the numbers to bias out, to manually set the exact amount of current that flows to each one of these transistors that has the proper amount of HFE and leakage. It was an unbelievably mind-numbing project, but I wanted to have a legitimate Super Fuzz that sounded like what they sound like, and I did. I had this. I still got it here. I built another one. I built the clone with the op amps, and it sounded exactly the same, if not a little better. It was cleaner and quieter, and a great pedal. So I gave that one to my daughter, and then I heard about the FZ2. I heard that Buckethead uses the FZ2, but he uses it on a boost mode. So there's Fuzz 1, Fuzz 2, and then Boost. And when they made the op amp version of this thing, they ditched the tone control and they gave it a bass control and a treble. And people that know about this, it's a really radically extreme, like almost unusable fuzz, will say the best thing on that pedal is the boost mode 3. So Behringer came out with this thing called Behringer SF300, the Behringer Super Fuzz. It's orange. It's $29 all day, every day, and it has the triple mode. Plus, you can set it in between 1 and 2 and get 1.5, which is supposed to be really cool. All I know is people that know about that boost love it because this is going back to a time where they didn't really make boost pedals that had 2-band EQs on them. Most boost pedals it was just a boost. They didn't even have a tone knob. And the old world tone knob is something that I parted ways with. I'm not really a fuzz guy, and the idea of a tone control, while I could see its appeal as opposed to not having anything, but ultimately running pre and post EQ pedals would probably get you around that, but it's wiser just to build it in. And I like bass and treble knobs that when you turn them, you can tell that you've adjusted it. I don't like these real subtle bass knob. I really don't like that. I don't like having an extra knob on the pedal if I'm always just going to set it up, turned all the way up. I hate that. I'm not, even when I first got into pedal making, the idea of modding out circuits to add like the Roots mod on the Rat, what a huge disappointment. So I have strong feelings about that, but again, it's kind of goofy in that the volume knob is defeated when you go into boost mode on the SF300. It's just the gain acts as the volume knob, the master volume. They figured it was redundant having a volume and a gain if it was just a clean boost. And I think it's the same way on the FZ2. But the place that I buy PCBs from, like, I could have got the 29 pedals JFET boost. I really didn't want to have to deal with JFETs. This thing is 1458. That's a chip that's, it's like a stereo LM741, and I love those. I love those. If you get into a discussion with an electronics engineer and they'll shout you down and claim that its low slew rate has nothing to do with why it sounds magical, There's something about like those old delay units from Digitech that were 12-bit. There's a sound to that that I really like. It matches with the guitar really well. And it's I mean, I guess you could call it lo-fi, but it's something that's almost imperceivable. It's just like has an aura to it that's pleasant. So yeah, I'm waiting now. Usually Tay does, like, there's always some weird holiday that they have. It's the day of the cow. So you have to wait for another 2 weeks. That stuff's going to come in. I'm going to rebuild it into that uh, maroon looking chassis, that red sparkle chassis that I had. And then maybe we'll take this off and try it matched up with this. And we'll have a 4-knob affair with volume, gain, um, bass, and treble. It's called the Hyped Fuzz. And if that doesn't work out, like, I could always just buy a Behringer Super Fuzz to see, do I really like this boost mode? But I'm gonna, like I said, we did 2 pedals in a row, and I kind of like, I did both of these in one day. Like, my wife came home from work, and I was like, let's go. And we built it, finished it, ate dinner, and went to bed. You really should spread that out over 2 days. You should do half of the work one day where you populate the board and clean it up, and maybe get some prep going for the next day where you wire it all up and put it in the chassis. I didn't do that. And every time I've done that, every time I've done it the other way, I don't have a problem with. But it's when you rush the wiring that you end up regretting it. So I am pretty confident this is going to be the one. And I know that what I was getting from this is already really pretty good. I could compromise with this. I want something that I really feel good with. So we're going to try that other boost because I was aware of it for a while. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a clean boost pedal that has bass and treble controls. And I've got a EQ pedal. It doesn't give you a lot, but it's a BMT-V. Volume, bass, mid-range, and treble. I've got that. I could put that on there. This is really nitpicky stuff I'm dealing with here. So I'm hoping that the SF300 isn't something ridiculously way too much. That when this company redesigned it, if the volume knob works on it, then I'm going to be able to find a happy medium on there. I know it's 30 decibels of gain, and I'm not looking for that, I'm probably looking for more like about 6 in all reality. So we'll see how this pans out. I'll be back after I have that pedal finished. It'll be in a couple weeks. In the meantime, we're playing this music. You guys haven't heard this stuff yet, and not the last time we played, but the time before that, I played guitar better than I have ever played in my life. I sounded great, and I'm excited for that, although I don't think I'll ever replicate it. It's probably all downhill from here. So keeping it realistic, you guys. Thanks for keeping me company here today. Sorry if this was a half hour of me talking about pedals again. It's what I love to do, and it's why I started this channel. So I hope some of you find this type of thing entertaining and interesting at some point. But I should also point out that I realize how close towards mental illness. Like, I'm treading in the deep end here with this, because as it is now, I could just say, you know what, enough's enough, and go with this. We're going to give it one more shot to try to obtain Sonic Nirvana, and I mean, really, what I what I'm shooting for is to have this board. So take this orange pedal off and put it back on the board that has the germanium. Or maybe vice versa. So I'll have two pedal boards. I'll have a backup in case there's a problem. And the other one has 3 pedals on it. It has a Rev G3 at the end, which is a distortion that you can shut the sizzle off of it and just use it as a tone shaping tool, which is really cool for the when pairing it with these amp sims. You know how when you kick on a real heavy high gain distortion, it shapes your tone a lot. That's what this does. And the amp modeler has a ridiculous amount of gain in some of these amp models. So Bob's your uncle. It's really cool. And then I can step through this stuff and get multiple stages like a real authentic guitar player, a real rig. Like this is a big boy rig. And I never thought I would be playing like this, where it's like it's using clean boost to push the front end of tube amps idea, but doing it using impulse responses and amp models, doing it digitally. And it works. It works. It's good enough for me. And I don't think if you played one of my live things for an audience of people, I don't think they would say, oh, that guy's not playing through a real tube amp. They would say, oh, that sounds good. And that's really what it comes down to. Good tone is something that it's not really a thing. It's just there, you know. In having more unique tones, like this idea, what I'm doing here with this MG30 is what's separating my tone from all the rest of the guys that are using MG30 stock. So that's nice to know that, like yesterday, I shut these pedals off and I just turned the volume up on the MG30 and played the song, and it's like, no. There's some tone shaping going on with these pedals. That's where the magic is happening. So it's cool. Anyway, you guys, I'll talk to you later. Hug your pets, and peace.